Hello, I am Ryan Di Corpo, the managing editor of Outreach, and welcome to another episode of Outspoken. Father James Martin, our editor, is currently at the Synod on Synodality in Rome. Today we will be speaking with Colleen Dulle, an associate editor at America and co-host of the Inside the Vatican podcast with Gerard O'Connell. Colleen, thank you for joining us. It's 10 a.m. here and about 4 p.m. in Rome. Have you adjusted to the time change?
Oh yeah, because it's so much work. So I jump right into working, and then, it kind of turns into I have more energy for later nights, which is good because usually I'm useless by 8 p.m.
That's totally understandable. About
Mm-hmm.
a week or so ago, the Synod delegates took a mandatory trip to the Roman Catacombs, and they were given a copy of the Pact of the Catacombs from 1965. I'm wondering if you can tell us what the significance of that was and what the Pact of the Catacombs is.
Sure. The Pact of the Catacombs was an agreement that 40 bishops at Vatican II, mostly from Latin America, I believe led by Elder Camera, they went into the catacombs of Domitilla near the end of Vatican II, about 3 weeks before the end of the last session. And they had been really moved by the emphasis on poverty, like gospel poverty, that they were hearing in the council. And they wanted to make a promise to live that poverty, live that call in a more radical way. And so they agreed in the Pact of the Catacombs to, live the way that the poorest of their parishioners live, to use public transit, dress normally, forego fancy titles and gold pectoral crosses and all of this, just a real message of humility. Anyway, they went down into the catacombs, they had a mass, I believe, and then they signed this pact, and word got around about it to other bishops at the council, and eventually around 500 signed on to it. But some people say that because of it's like the focus of the Vatican on the Cold War and being anti-communist and everything, the Pact of the Catacombs was sort of quickly forgotten because it smelled a little like communism. This focus on poverty, and so anyway, it's sort of a hidden treasure now. It went on to have a very lasting impact in Latin America in liberation theology, but for the rest of the world, we kind of needed a reminder of it. And so actually, this was not explicitly mentioned at the Synod's pilgrimage to the catacombs. However, it was included in their little sheet that they were given at the prayer service, their little booklet. And so that had the prayers they were saying, and then, for further reading, if they wanted to peruse, they could peruse the full text of the Pact of the Catacombs.
As it was with Vatican II, certain synodal matters are confidential under the pontifical secret, and this has created some concern among reporters about not being able to really report on what is going on at the Synod. Can you tell us what is the purpose of the pontifical secret and what it is?
Sure. I should say it has not been applied in so many words to this Synod. However, it has been applied to synods in the past. For example, 2018, the Pontifical Secret covered the interventions that were made and also the votes that were taken. So the Pontifical Secret, what it basically means, it sounds very Dan Brown, but it means that you can't, if you break the Pontifical Secret, if you tell someone the secret, there are canonical penalties built into it. So all the way up to being removed from the priesthood or from priestly ministry, not from the priesthood, but from priestly ministry. It just means that there's a set of penalties that come from breaking the secrecy.
What is the purpose of using the pontifical secret in past synods?
Oh, sure. For past synods, I think that it's so that people feel free to voice their opinions, speak with that parousia, that courage, boldness that Pope Francis is always encouraging. And in this synod in particular, it's very important because this is so discussion focused, and it's taking on so many big topics that they really don't want this to be a synod where people are sort of using their speeches as a way of campaigning for influence in the outside world, as it had been in past generations. Bishops would stand up at the synod and they would give their talk, and it was a little bit of an audition for future appointments. It also is used to protect the voting secrecy, which I think goes without explaining. People want to be able to vote for things without having it listed publicly, like on C-SPAN, yay or nay.
Some Catholic journalists have criticized the secrecy surrounding the Synod as making it difficult to report. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that and what you have been able to learn about the proceedings.
Yeah, I would definitely concur with that, and not just because I like to complain. But it's been really difficult to get any information on the record. And then, we've been getting some things off the record from Synod participants, but then, you also have this question of, okay, if you can get 3 off-record sources to confirm something, technically journalistic ethics would say it's okay to go ahead and report that. But here, as Catholic journalists, we also have to make this calculation. Well, if we learn something, would publicizing it have an impact on the Synod proceedings? Would it jeopardize that conversation that's happening inside? Because, we do want that conversation to be able to happen, right? Like I understand the need for secrecy. I also want to get my story out. So it's tough. It's been difficult to navigate that. There have been, I guess, one way that I've been going with this is paying a lot of attention to what other people are reporting, what other people are feeling comfortable sharing. And so what we know from that about what's been going on inside, for example, we've now seen 2 of the big stories that we were hearing off record now put onto the record. One was this powerful intervention that was given by someone about a Polish woman who was bisexual, who went to confession and was denied absolution, and she ended up dying by suicide. And Father Timothy Radcliffe, who was the kind of spiritual director of the Synod, who helped lead the Synod retreat before they went into the Vatican to start their deliberations, he got up the other day and he said, many of us wept when we heard this. And that's what I've been hearing off record too. It's that this was a really emotional moment. Some people were overcome with emotion and had to leave the room. The other sort of dramatic moment that has now been put on record is one prelate did actually storm out of the Synod. He has since returned, and I get a sense that was rather early on and that the Synod's now coalescing more. But yeah, those are 2 sort of dramatic moments that we've all been hearing about, but weren't sure how to report, and now it's out.
There's been a lot of focus, obviously, on the Synod in terms of church reform. There are some Catholics who think that on certain topics, whether it be related to LGBTQ Catholics or women's ordination or communion for divorced or remarried Catholics, that things might change. How has the Synod itself responded to this idea of the Synod being for doctrinal reform? What have they said to kind of temper expectations?
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of tempering. Nearly every day at the press conference, they're getting up and talking about how, the biggest change that will come out, like they're not here to take decisions on things like women deacons or whatever right now. If we get any decisions out of the synodal body, it will likely be after next year's session. But the takeaway from this session, they just continue to repeat to us, is the actual practice of synodality. So getting together, learning to have these synodal conversations, and then a number of participants have said they want to go home and try to start implementing this in their dioceses, which is significant since most of the participants, well, I don't know, let's say most, I don't know if that's accurate, but many participants are bishops. So we could start to see that integrated more into how diocesan leadership is done. But yeah, all in all, we've heard many times, they're not here to change doctrine, especially. So it's a bit of an unsatisfying answer, but also I did an interview recently with John Thavis, who was the former Rome Bureau Chief of Catholic News Service, and he was telling me that, in the synods he's covered, which I think he covered most of them since the first one in 1985, he said that he's seen ideas raised in synods, and then maybe 7 years later, something is quietly done to implement those ideas that at the time when they were first raised seemed crazy. I wish I could remember some examples right now, but I'm very tired, so I cannot. But 7 years, he gave 2 examples where both of them were 7 years. So I don't know. I know that it's frustrating to hear.
There have been numerous synods, as you mentioned, during Francis's pontificate in particular. There was the synods on the family in 2014 and 2015. There was the Amazon Synod in 2019. What makes this gathering unique, and why should Catholics pay attention to this synod?
This synod is very, very different from past synods. I mean, Francis's way of proceeding in all of his synods so far has been really different from his predecessors. He's implemented a lot more consultation. For example, there was a big consultation of families before that one. There was a big consultation of young people before that synod. There was a, I believe, year-long listening process in the Amazon before that one. But this one, it's taken to a whole new level, right? We have this difference in participation and who is part of the synod. Lay people, women are full voting members for the first time. That's a huge deal. And the purpose of this synod is different, I think. It's not dealing with one specific issue, which synods since Vatican II have generally focused just on one specific issue. And previously they were aimed at advising the Pope on what to say in a certain pastoral document that he would issue after the synod, right? This one is more about discovering this way of kind of consulting with, working with, discerning with one another, and trying to implement that culture throughout the church, which is, it's tough to report on because it feels really intangible. But it is aimed at making this bigger change. So yeah, the purpose, the participation, very different from past synods.
Some conservative U.S. bishops and cardinals have repeatedly criticized the synod, with some suggesting that it could lead to a schism. How has synod leadership responded to these charges, and what has the Pope had to say?
Sure. The synod leaders and spokespeople who get up now daily in front of us at the press conferences get asked about this all the time, especially by American news outlets that are generally more resistant to Pope Francis's efforts. And we've heard over and over from the people in the synod, there is no threat to the orthodoxy or unity of the church. It does feel like a narrative that folks with an agenda are pushing. As far as what the Pope has said, I don't know, specifically on a danger of schism. We have his older quotes about he's not afraid of schism, but he prays they do not happen. But I can't think of any, specifically related to this synod.
What do we know about what happens after this synod concludes? I understand there'll be some kind of final report put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just found this out a couple of days ago. So we're recording on Friday, October 20th. I believe we found out Monday or Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday. The days are running together for me now. But that the synod will issue a very short final document from the first session, right? Not final document for this 2-year process. But a short final document that will outline, they've been saying, the convergences, divergences, tensions, and questions. And so I think that will give a jumping off point for then the conversations to kind of return to the local churches for that 11-month period in between synod meetings. We've also been told that 11-month period is going to be a time when canonical changes are explored, and a time of just additional discernment around some of these questions that have been raised. And what those questions are, we don't exactly know. We know there's been discussion of the female diaconate. We know that, that's just one example, but we know very little about what's happening inside. Anyway, there will be a short document at the end. There will also be a pastoral letter issued to the people of God from the synod. which is an interesting addition and passed with an overwhelming majority in the Synod Hall. So it seems like they really want to say something to us. So we'll find out at the end of the Synod what that is.
Who's tasked with drafting that pastoral letter? Is that coming directly from the Pope, or is that coming from a Synod committee?
I believe it's from a drafting committee within the Synod that was elected by Synod members. And I believe that's the same case for the final document.
And will that final document, is that an internal document, or is that something that will be made public?
I believe that will be made public. Yeah.
How does this set up the final part of the universal stage? How does the Synod set up the meeting for next October when it concludes?
Well, I think that this was kind of a Synod boot camp. In a way, this was them learning how to have these conversations, and we've seen them get better at it. And like I said earlier, kind of coalesce as a body. So having that same body return next year will be really big, because they won't be starting from scratch trying to build relationships, right? There will be a much more constructive working relationship. I think that also the conversations that they've just started having in this Synod will have a lot of time to mature over the next 11 months. Their questions and divergences and tensions and convergences will be put out there for people like you and me, Ryan, to go through and debate publicly as a whole, and kind of continue the conversations. There will be very smart people who aren't in the Synod Hall weighing in on these things, hopefully in the pages of America and Outreach. And I think that will do a lot to then make the conversation go forward, so that next year when they get together, they'll be in more of a place to make some decisions, do some discernment together. 11 months is a long time to do prayerful reflection and debate and study. I don't know. I think that in many ways it's going to set up a more mature conversation next year.
Colleen, we appreciate all your on-the-ground reporting for us, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Always glad to.